Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's special tech guests. But first, as always, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, you've heard me say many times before, I only have sponsors that I used as an athletic director. These are all great companies. I strongly recommend that you listen to them. So take the next 3 minutes. We're going to do our shout outs, then listen to our Tech Tuesday experts, then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank our good friends at HUDL for their support of the podcast. You've heard me say many times, as a football coach, I used HUDL for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a HUDL school. And our coaches just loved the tools that HUDL provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to HUDL.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a HUDL school. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. And if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made easy. The Gipper team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, whether it's a social media post to celebrate a big win or a newsletter describing all the great things that your school and athletic program is doing. The Gipper team is going to help you do it. Go to Gipper.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, Gipper.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more custom features, the Hometown Ticketing team is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We'd like to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all of their different events, or to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with hundreds of others, and it was a great experience. Reasonably priced, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. The Ohio University Online Masters. We'd like to thank Home Campus for all their support. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. Their student athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. Go to homecampus.com to get started. Even if your state association uses another platform for scores and results, the athletic clearance platform is a game changer. Go to homecampus.com to find out more information. We'd like to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo, see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise. If you've ever spent time with a fundraising platform and been disappointed in the results, you need to check out Snap Raise. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. Like I say, you're going to be very glad you did. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that only wants to complain. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group because it's important to hear their concerns, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that support your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. Athleticsurveys.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We're staying right here in Florida this week, and we've got two great guests from the athletic director world. We've got an old friend, Valerie Miyares. Our regular listeners to the podcast or to Florida will recognize that name. Val's a longtime athletic director here in Florida. She's a past president of our state association. I think she's currently the immediate past president in our board hierarchy. Tremendous background as an athlete, as a coach, and now as an AD. Also joining Val is Josh Jochim. Josh is from the great world of HUDL. Okay. HUDL's one of our great sponsors. That's why they're on Tech Tuesday. Josh and I have got to know each other the last couple of years at, the FIAAA, NADC, and other events. And we're excited to hear from both of them. So, Val, I'm going to start with you. Welcome to Tech Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Jake. Really excited to be here with you and Josh. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I know it's a busy time for our listeners. We're recording this on December 3rd, so it's going to be very timely when you're listening to it. Um, Josh, want to officially welcome you to your first time on my podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. We think the stories are as important as the schools or the products. So, Josh, I'll start with you. What's your background? Where'd you grow up, and how'd you end up working with Huddle?
Yeah, great question. So I'm originally from a small town right outside of Omaha, Nebraska. Being in a small town, you really play about every sport growing up. And high school is actually where I got my first, kind of taste or experience with Huddle specifically. We utilized it at that point. This is back in 2011, 2012 for football, basketball, as well as track. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go down to Lincoln, the University of Nebraska, as a shot putter and hammer thrower down there. And going through the recruiting process, I had no idea what a hammer throw even was. So that was a great experience. 2 years in, though, and being from Nebraska, growing up a big Cornhusker fan. So that was always kind of a life dream. But 2 years in, Huddle is actually headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mhm.
And so I saw an internship posted for them. And luckily, I went to high school with the lady who was a job coordinator. And so I must have sent her probably 10 messages on LinkedIn. I was like, you've got to get me in this place. Like, I knew I wanted to work for Huddle. It was this cool, kind of new, shiny toy. Especially being, involved in athletics, loving athletics. So that was 10 years ago. Started as an intern there, finished out my high school career or college career there. Then, shoot, they haven't fired me yet. So I guess I'm doing something right. I've got a lot of different experience, a lot of different perspective. Initially started as our rep specifically for Southern California. That's actually where I'm currently located. Did that for a couple years. Being from a small town, then having to navigate the LA traffic was quite the hurdle. But again, we're still here. From there, helped start our Huddle franchise partner program. Did that for a couple years, then wanted a new challenge or kind of just something new to do. And that's where my current role is, and really I'd say my favorite role because I'm able to work with district athletic directors like Val across the country. But a lot of really good experience, a lot of good perspective, and I think that's helped being able to go back to decision makers like Val and provide ideas, provide more reasoning, but just give the kind of the full landscape of what's going on with Huddle and how it can benefit all the different stakeholders involved.
Oh, well, I just love hearing all the stories and the different stops and different events. As a long time, not just football, but track coach, I was at University Nebraska Lincoln a couple of times when I was a college track coach. That's where they had the NAI indoor nationals there.
Oh yeah.
So as a thrower, did you ever throw that the indoor weight? Was that one of your events?
It was, yes. 35 pounds, which again, I had no idea was even a thing. And when I got to campus, I was about a 190 soaking wet. And they said, "Hey, Josh, we need you at 250." So that freshman 15 turned into a freshman 50, which wasn't great for the spring break bod by any means, but it was a great time, great experience.
All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot for sharing. Um, for our listeners, Valerie Miyares, she's the district athletic director for one of the largest districts, not just in the state, but I think in the nation, Palm Beach County. Val, give us your life story in 60 seconds.
Yeah, I will try to package that up. I'm Valerie Miyares, District Athletic Director for the School District of Palm Beach County. We are the 10th largest school district in the country. So I work with 26 high schools and 36 middle schools. And so that gives us 60. If you're good at math, that's 62 schools, and it's always a very exciting day here in Palm Beach. There's always something to do. But I am born and raised in South Florida in Pembroke Pines, and I went to high school at Chaminade Madonna in Hollywood. So, last a few years ago, I was inducted into their Athletic Hall of Fame, and very grateful for that as an alumni. I was the first female to sign an NCAA athletic scholarship out of Chaminade, and I signed a Division II ride with West Liberty. It was then State College. It's now West Liberty University in West Virginia, and I signed for volleyball and softball. I also got to sneak a year of basketball in. While I was at West Lib, we had a top 10 women's basketball program and got to go to the NCAA tournaments and played 3 sports my sophomore year. So it was a very busy undergrad experience. I graduated actually with a degree in criminal justice. I always say that criminology, is a good background to have as you work in high schools and education, and so that has served me well. I have my master's from St. Thomas University in sports administration, and I've finished all the coursework for my doctorate in business administration also at St. Thomas, and somehow have to get on the horse and get going here with my dissertation. So I'm 22 years in on education and 21 years as an athletic administrator. It's been terrific to be a school-based AD and now a district athletic director, and to build my own capacity and growth and understanding, and a way to support athletes and other adults here in the system. And I'm just, happy to be here and to work with you, Jake, today. Thanks so much for, having Josh and I. I'm really excited about what we're doing with HUDL in the district, and how we're benefiting our schools with it.
Oh, well, again, thanks for coming on. Let's go and stick with you, Val. Now, our listeners, they hear me say every episode, as a football coach, I used Huddle. As an athletic director, we were a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved it. The kids, the parents, everybody loved it. So you already sold me, but your district just started using Huddle, I believe, this year. Can you kind of walk our listeners through that process? Why Huddle? And, how has it worked out for you? We'll take a real deep dive into your stakeholders, but how's it worked out for you since becoming a Huddle school or a Huddle
So
district?
yeah, so I'm excited about the idea of having a district athletic package for all of our schools. So, Josh had contacted me. We had a handful of conversations, and I'll say that one of the glaring things was that Josh had kind of shared with me what my, at that time, 24 high schools was using through Huddle. And it really showed the disparity amongst our schools with what they were able to afford. And so we had probably 11 schools that were able to purchase, the athletic package themselves on their campus through their internal accounts, through donations and fundraising. And then the rest of our schools are really piecemealing it together, and they were doing it on a very a la carte basis. And it really was just kind of geared towards football. And I think a lot of people view Huddle as a football tool,
Yeah.
and I don't think understand really the bandwidth that Huddle has, across multiple sports in the venue. And so when Josh had presented me with that information, I mean, it set on me so hard to kind of see the disparity between our schools. And so for equity and for competitive balance, for preparation, for giving all coaches the same tool to be able to be successful with was really important to me. And Huddle is not, it's not cheap. Let's just say what it is. It's not cheap. It's an expensive tool, but there's a reason for it. I've always felt that Huddle is the gold standards in this area. I know that there are a couple others that try to come in on it, but really with such a trusted name and background and history, I just don't feel that you can go, any better than Huddle at this point in time. So being able to give all of our schools the same package, for streaming, for cloud storage, for analytics, for Huddle Assist and breaking down stats, for fan engagement. There's just so many things that we could do through Huddle. I was really excited about it. So we are on a 5-year contract with Huddle. I'm very grateful to our superintendents and the leadership team and our high school principals that really drove this through some of their meetings when I brought it to them, and that they found value in bringing this to all of their schools. And I was excited to work with Huddle to build a quality package for all 26 of our schools to have the same benefits equally on their campuses.
Boy, just great stuff. And again, you're preaching to the choir. Josh, I'm going to get to you in a second, but Val, I want to follow up on something. As you were presenting the package that Josh had presented for all of your schools in the county, what were some of the key things, again, that Josh gave you to present? And what were some of the things that you really wanted the admin, the soup, the board to know? Why you really felt that this was a need as opposed to a want?
It's a need in the fact that this is a tool now that we drive for recruiting. Quite honestly, the kids take all of their Huddle film. We see it on every X account, every Instagram account. There are links to go watch highlights. It's the way that the kids splice it together so that they can send it off to the college coaches. And so making sure that every athlete that Huddle could represent, through their platform, to have the same opportunity, and for it not just, again, to be a football player tool was extremely important to me. We also wanted to take a step further. When the pandemic had hit, we started going to everything touchless when the pandemic had hit. And we were having situations where we weren't able, everybody knows this, we weren't able to have everybody at the stadium. So how are we going to be able to have people involved, be able to support? And so we had the idea about streaming. Fortunately, with Huddle, one of the big draws there was that we didn't have to have, any sort of cost
paywall.
To that. There wasn't a paywall. Thank you, Josh. There was no paywall for that. So we were really excited about that, and that we could stream at no cost. And that's actually one of the things in our district, that if you're streaming the game, you cannot have a paywall whatsoever. You cannot use it as a fundraiser. And so we wanted to be able to, have parents or families from out of state be able to peek in on what kids are doing. We have families in unique situations, whether it's that they're military families, maybe they have family members that are incarcerated, whatever it is, but it's a way for them to still kind of have a touch point with what other people are doing, or maybe what their children are doing. But then one step above that is that we all know about the Division I recruiters, and we have the head football coaches that land in their helicopters and they land on the fields, and it's a very dramatic and it's super exciting. But there's also these smaller campuses that are maybe in South Dakota or Montana. And if you're familiar with the country, they're diagonal from Florida. And so not every recruiting budget can really have sustainability, but by having a package like this with Huddle, and most importantly with the streaming, it's a way for other colleges that don't have those large, robust recruiting budgets and benefits to be able to take a look at a kid in the southeast area of the country and be able to evaluate them and have some communication with them. And so those were some of the big draws. I think also, I've talked to Josh about the fact that I love Huddle Assist. As a former coach, the idea of having to sit down and watch game film, or make sure my assistants are catching every single stat and what had happened, or going back through the books and taking a look at the idea that somebody else can watch my film with a neutral eye, can take a look at everything, can give all those stats, can turn it around to me in a certain time frame. And not only that, not just for me, but maybe for my opponents, and that I'm able to see those stats, what every number with a jersey on is doing, what those tendencies are on offense or defense. Like, it just, technology is such a cool thing. And the idea that it can enhance your competitive ability and your preparation ability, I just think is such a wonderful thing. And I have the discussion with my athletic directors, and I did that most recently, is that we have these tools for a reason. Let's ensure that we're using them. Let's ensure that we're getting better, because that's what it's there for. So there are a lot of things to be excited that are in the package, but the streaming and the Huddle Assist are two things that I'm really pumped up about.
Oh no, absolutely. And again, I'm glad you touched on the coaching aspect. Um, when we became a huddle school at my school, I was just a little bit apprehensive. Are the other coaches going to like it? We had talked about it, but they all just loved it. I remember my volleyball coach, she's in the gym, she's programming the camera, the basketball coach, soccer coaches, they all just loved it. Such a great tool. Josh, I want to give you a chance. Um, Now, Val mentioned her school district's the 10th largest school district in the country. I'm going to guess you had done some packages for other big districts. What were some of the things that you, from your end, were sharing with Val? I guess particularly about the service, because again, I love the product. The customer service was just phenomenal. First of all, we didn't really need it that often, but when we needed it, it was always there, literally like within 30 minutes. So again, what were some of the features that you were sharing with Val to help her make that decision?
Yeah, Val made a comment earlier about Huddle being a premium solution, and that's what we identify ourselves as. But the service component is really important to that. So something that Val and I talked a lot about was having a return on that investment, right? If the district is going to make this investment, we need to make sure the district feels comfortable with obviously the products and services that we're provided, but from a training aspect, from a professional developing their coaches aspect, we want to make sure that the coaches in Palm Beach and the programs in Palm Beach aren't just equipped for success now, right? We want to equip them for going on for the future and really putting this on a scale that we can or putting this in a place that we can scale for all the programs in the district. And so we talked a lot about the training that we do provide and why that is important. So something that we have done three, or at least we've done it twice so far this year, was coming in and training the different coaching staffs, right? So myself, a couple members of our training team came out right before the end of the school year and trained the fall coaches. We were just back in Palm Beach, and whenever I can get a chance to come out to Palm Beach and take Val out to dinner, that's top of my list. But recently, we were just back out there to train some of their winter coaches. Right, we'll do the same thing for their spring coaches as well. It's at Huddle. It's really important for us that we're not only equipping programs with the tools, or we're not only giving kids or people the ability to drive or the keys to drive, but we're teaching them how to drive. We're teaching them how to utilize those tools. So it's not just getting the cameras up, putting these items in place for the programs. We want to make sure that they're using them and using the heck out of them. And so far, what we've seen, just running some early numbers for Val, is the amount of athletes at their school has quadrupled. So if we look at the district as a whole, and previously the amount of athletes that were watching video and looking at just the first fall semester of this 5-year deal, we've got 4 times the amount of athletes that are watching video. That's a great step in the development and really, I would say, the adoption of Huddle from a broader scale. So talking a lot about how other districts have cut through the red tape. We utilizing some resources that we had, whether that be prior contracts or some of the other kind of admin items on the back end. But Val did an incredible job of organizing all the different stakeholders and getting everybody involved right away. And really, what she's done is created a framework for how we approach other districts going forward. It's not just the district AD, right? You've got to have IT on board. You've got to have the soup involved. You've got to have budgeting and finance people involved as well. So all those different steps, she knew exactly what she was doing right away, and that's what got this done at the end of the day.
Well, again, all great points. I'm going to come back to you with a question here, Josh, so bear with me on this. Val mentioned, I guess, a couple of things. This is going to lead to my question at the start. A huddle it's a service. It's a product, it's an app, and yeah, there is a cost to it. And Val, I think used the words, it's not cheap. To me, cheap denotes quality. Okay. Huddle's not inexpensive. It does cost, but there's a value to it. There's a service. And both you alluded to one of the big values. Obviously, we want to try to help our college bound student athletes, that's 7% or 6% with the videos. But you just alluded to it with the amount of users. We also want to take care of that 93, that 94% that aren't going to play college sports. Huddle provides some great memories, some great video souvenirs that they can have for the rest of their lives. Even if they're not using it to market themselves to a college, that's still, that's part of their life. It's a great memory. So now here's my question. Val's a big school, huge school. We've got a lot of listeners that are at smaller schools, maybe one town schools, and they might be asking, geez, how am I ever going to afford this quality value program? What are some ways that you've worked with those smaller districts, I guess, to help them see the value and also to help them get the product?
Yeah, you called out a great point about the value there. So if anybody tells me, hey, we think Huddle's too expensive, that tells me that you don't see the value. And if you don't see the value, that means I haven't done my job to explain what's all involved here, because it's much more than just what meets the eye. To take a side step first off, I think about, the average, we're now looking at the roles and the expectations of average coaches across the country. You got to have somebody film the game. Somebody's gonna then got to upload the game afterwards. Then somebody's got to break that film down when it's uploaded. Then afterwards, you need to exchange that game to somebody else. That's all done right away now with Huddle. And so we talk about, how do we make sure that schools are utilizing the resources properly? Like we want to get coaches back to coaching, right? So I think first off is going into whether it's a big or a small school, is making them understand from a decision maker standpoint, what are the expectations of coaches nowadays, and how can we make that easier? And if we do make that easier and coaches do have more time, the limited time that they do have that more to spend with their athletes, what does that mean for the athlete development? So I think that's really important. But from a, how do we get people more involved, or how do we get people, funding, a school-wide package? Coming from a small school, I love talking about that, right? Like I think I graduated with 90 kids, pretty small town. I've got some buddies that, graduated with 4 kids, right? Like really, really small towns in Nebraska. So when I have those conversations, I put myself back in my own shoes and I said, hey, if I would have gone to my mom at that time and said, hey, you pitch in a little bit here or there, and you've got access to your son's, all of his game film, whether that be good or bad game film, throughout the high school career, like she would have jumped all over that. Every situation is a little bit different, though. We talk about, a lot about, the different products that Huddle now has evolved. We talk about live streaming, broadcasting, that being applicable for career technical education budgets. We're seeing states. It's been adapted in Minnesota as part of their curriculum. We're seeing other states that have interest in this as well. So being able to pull from those budgets to be able to go towards Huddle, breaking that total cost out per program. I think the sponsorship route is super interesting especially when you're in small towns, right? You've got your local real estate agent, local banker. Maybe they're already doing something with the school, but they want to digitalize their sponsorship efforts. A lot of what we try to do as reps is educate our decision makers, because if I put myself in Val's shoes, she's got so much going on, right? Wears a ton of different hats, and is busy every hour of the day. But so to have her figure out how to afford it is, that's asking a lot. So really what we want to be able to do, and really what I consider myself as more of a consultant than anything. Val and I were sitting shotgun with each other trying to figure out how to make this happen, because I knew that she believed in it. And that's the approach that we'd like our reps to have with every school out there. But because we know every situation's different, and we do feel that the value that we can provide, can fit every situation out there too.
Oh, yeah. Again, those are just such great points. I love the way you shared that. Val, you've been using the product now for a few months, and this isn't something that you bought for Val. You bought this for your coaches, for the kids, for the district. What kind of feedback have you gotten so far from those primary users, the coaches, and from the kids, and maybe even from the parents? What can you share with our listeners?
I think the first thing first, it was the cost aspect to it. So I remember one of my athletic directors, he called me and he said, I can't even begin to tell you how much my staff loves you right now. The idea that we don't have to, pay out, a five-figure sum, to have Huddle robustly across the athletic department. It's not something that they have to fundraise for, because really fundraising should be for something fun, right? I just don't think it should be for the operational components of things. I think if kids are going to fundraise, then maybe some new uniforms, for some equipment, so for some of that specialized thing. But to fundraise for things that just make the engine run, to fundraise for things that make the engine modern, I think is a task that the kids shouldn't have put on their shoulders. And so I was thrilled when the district found the value in this, and that we were able to give that back to the coaching staff. So that, first and foremost, is some of the feedback we've been receiving. Josh had touched on how some of the other districts in other states are dipping into other types of accounts to be able to pay for these things. Security is a big part of that. I know that there's states that are looking at it from that. I think it's there's even Title IV funds, if I'm not speaking out of turn, that people are using. Some of the great feedback we had, we had Veterans Day and a few other things. We had one of our schools that they used the Huddle cameras for their presentation in the gym, and they live streamed it into all the classrooms. And so there's something that it was used towards an academic component, and not just towards an athletic component. And that was fantastic. The AD from that school called me, the principal from that school called me, and they were just so excited about it. So I talked with Josh, about this, and, I said, everybody knows this for football and everybody knows this for basketball. Well, I already have the volleyball coaches asking if they can have the baseline cameras. We're 4 months in, we are just using the package as intended, but people are already liking what it brings to the table. And so they're wanting to augment that. Huddle has just rolled out baseball and softball cameras as well. And so we have the baseball and softball coaches now asking if they can have that set up for the baseball and softball fields. And that's one of the things I'm going to discuss with the superintendent when it comes to budget time. So it's been greatly accepted. I want to talk about one group that I think is really going to benefit well from this. And here in Florida, we have competition cheerleading as one of our sports. And if anybody's ever been to competition cheer states in Florida, it's intense. And I have such respect for those athletes, because unlike the rest of our teams and sports, you don't get to call the timeout, in the middle of this. You're doing your 2.5-minute routine, you're on the spot, you have to perform, make or break, and I just really love going to that event. But the idea that here now we have the Huddle camera in the gym, and what was said before is that normally you'd have a cheer coach with an iPhone or something else, and they're trying to get different angles. And with Huddle and what they're different, whether it's tactical, whether it's competition, they can look at those routines from so many different angles. And I just think that it's such a valuable tool for a sport like that, when everything is about optics and how they look, and they're judged and scored based on spacing, based on technique, that it's very unique. And I think that that's going to be one of the sports that I hope that we're surprised with, is how they're using it for competition cheerleading, with their performance space. So really excited about that.
Boy, that's such a great. I loved your story about the teacher who used the cameras to videotape. That's my ancient age speaking, to catch on camera those performances. We had a program at my school that I'm kicking myself now because we didn't do that. That's a great idea, to record it and then live stream to the school. Val, if you were going to give an elevator pitch, and you've already done a great job of talking about how the platform has worked for you and your coaches and your kids, what would that elevator pitch be? Ready? Go.
Well, I don't know how elevator-y it'll be, but I'll just give you kind of a one-liner. But, I just feel that as an athletic director, it's my responsibility to put my coaches in a position for success. And so if there's a tool here to provide success in planning, performance, execution, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? And if it takes the work off of 4 to 5 different people, all in one system, all in one platform, to where you have a service paid for, why wouldn't you do that? The idea of technology and athletics is here to stay. It's here to grow your program. It's here to grow your coaching staff. And like Josh had said earlier, to return the coaches back to coaching. There's an administrative aspect to being a coach, but largely we want the coaches to be with them. So let's give them an opportunity and a pathway to success. I truly feel that Huddle will do that for the coaches, and most certainly for the kids. I think that there's no greater pride than when kids go ahead and put their links up on X, or if it's Instagram or whatever it is, they want to share the good things that they are doing. Let's make sure we spend money on a lot of different things. Let's make sure that we're spending money on things that really support the kids and get them hopefully the next level, or as discussed before, a lifetime of memories that they can hang on to.
And that's why I love working with people like Val. She is a visionary in every sense of the word. Again, it's not just about solving what's wrong today. It's about addressing future needs, and she's done an incredible job of that throughout this process of not only getting this done for all of her schools, but getting to know her further as well. And it's just been a great experience all around. We're very excited for what this will continue to do for all the coaches and athletes throughout Palm Beach County, and anybody else that's interested in taking that same route, Jake will let you know where to find me.
Well, before we go, I'm just going to toss in this. As I've said for virtually every episode, as a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. But I'll tell you, I was a little apprehensive about making that jump to a school package, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised at the cost of that school package. So athletic directors, coaches, as Val said, it's our job to try to do the best we can for our kids and our coaches. So reach out to these two. Josh, let's start with you. If one of our listeners wants to find out more, obviously huddle.com, but if they want to pick your brain, they want to hear from you directly, how do they get a hold of Josh Jochim?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime via email. My email is Josh, so JOSH.JOCHIM at HUDL.com.
Okay. And Val, if somebody wants to pick your brain a little bit, boots on the ground, been using it for a couple months, how do they get a hold of Valerie Miyares?
Yeah, I would welcome that also for anyone that is going to be at the National AD Conference in Austin. I will be there as well. I'd be happy to take a few minutes to talk about what we're doing in Palm Beach with Huddle and the success with that, or just what some of the behind the scenes work and process that was to get it through and the contract through. So please find me at the National AD Conference. You're welcome to email me. My last name's a tough one, so I'll go ahead and spell it. Valerie, VALERIE .Miyares, MIYARES at palmbeachschools.org. And you are welcome to reach out to me. I'd be thrilled to talk with you about Huddle and the great things that we're doing in our district using this solution.
All right. Well, again, and I'm going to be at the NADC too, and I always try to spend time at each of my sponsors' booths. So look for me at the Huddle booth, and if nothing else, we can just say hi. Josh, Val, thanks again for sharing. Thanks for all you do in our space for kids, for coaches, for ADs, and we'll look forward to seeing both of you in Austin.
Yeah. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
For listeners, we appreciate you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this segment every week and just about every day. We try to share stories from the world of educational athletics and also some best practices. So come back next time and join us on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Wow, great stuff. And again, you heard me say it. I said it, I think, 3 times during the segment. I used Huddle as a coach, as an AD. If you're not using a Huddle, you really need to reach out. Talk to Josh, talk to Val, or talk to the great folks at Huddle. We also want to say thanks to our other great sponsors. Again, I used every single one of these products. Gipper, go to Gipper.com. Home Campus, homecampus.com. Sideline Interactive, that's sidelineinteractive.com. Hometown Ticketing, hometownticketing.com. Snap Raise, you can find them at snap.com. Vital Signs Wall of Fame, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Athletic Surveys, athleticsurveys.com. And Ohio University's Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Thanks again for listening. We're going to see you in a couple days in Austin, and we'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.